What's up, everyone? We're here for post-game Locked On Bucks. Milwaukee take care of business against the Wizards, 114-102. There was no Giannis, there was no Khris, but that does make things a little bit interesting in terms of the rotation. Some guys got some more opportunities tonight, so plenty to break down there as the road to the postseason continues. We have some injury updates, and also after this, as we head towards the weekend, the Bucks have three very big games coming up, so there's plenty to discuss in this podcast. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my work over at ESPN. Joining me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. For today's episode, it is brought to you by NBA Top Shot. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at lockedon.nbatopshot.com. And of course, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day, whether it's on the audio version or whether it is on YouTube as well. Now, if you haven't checked us out on YouTube yet, you're missing out on seeing Frank's head for at least half an hour after every game, which is what I know everyone wants to do. Frank, what's happening? I don't know how else to describe this win other than taking care of business. Maybe a little bit hairy down the stretch, but the Bucks were in cruise control for much of this night, and we got to see a featured role from Jrue Holiday. Again, we've been talking about it a lot, but Brook Lopez was pushing 30 minutes in this game. What are you taking away from this win over the Wizards?
One win in the standings and pretty much nothing else. I mean, That's not the way to hook everyone into this podcast we're about to get into. I mean, I thought the last game against the Bulls, was a genuinely impressive defensive performance. I think this game was a lot just more about the Wizards being garbage. And, especially in the first quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, they just missed so many shots. And, hey, I was enjoying it. I had a grin on my face because, as we often discuss, when Giannis is sitting in particular, and especially when you're missing Giannis and Khris Middleton, those are the nights where you hope, hey, I hope this is a night when the Bucks make a lot of threes and the opponent just misses a lot of them, because obviously these games turn into much more of a just 3-point shooting referendum without Giannis's inside dominance, and Khris obviously as well being a guy that can score from the mid-range or from three or get to the basket a little bit. So, any win would have done. Right. Any win will do on a night when you're missing, 2 of your 3 stars. And so to come away with not just a win, but a pretty comfortable win. Again, fourth quarter, some playing with their food problems, maybe not the most serious effort down the stretch. Jrue Holiday, as good as he was, kind of was farting around with some of the turnovers down the stretch. But overall, Jrue, obviously a huge focus on him on nights when the other 2 guys are out, and he was other than kind of some kind of lazy turnovers in the fourth quarter, he was very much in control. 24 points on 18 shots, 10 assists, plus 15 in 33 minutes. He was great, and great to see Grayson Allen, who we talked about him in the last pod, doing some stuff actually inside the arc, and tonight got back to doing a little bit more of what we're used to seeing, hitting 5 of 7 from 3. Hit a couple early, and kind of got on the right path there, and finishes with 21 points on 10 shots, which kind of feels like, the Grayson Allen we were seeing early in the season, just very efficient and punishing teams from the perimeter. So, all in all, I think, again, we've been talking a lot about the Bucks' sudden depth and what that will mean for the playoffs, but certainly, it's a very convenient thing to have on nights like this where you're missing, 2 great players, including 1 superstar. The fact that you can plug those holes, bring Bobby Portis in the starting 5. He gives you 11 points and 12 rebounds. Wes Matthews pretty much didn't do anything in the box score, but, again, his defense is going to be solid. And other guys were able to step up. And the bench, 3 guys in double figures, Kane. look at this bench depth. What's going on with this? I don't know, but
the hottest man on the whole lineup, by the way, Javon just get us 1 bucket and you make it 4 in double digits.
That's right. He had 8 points on 5 shots, another 2 out of 3 from deep. George Hill back in double figures. Serge Ibaka in double figures again. Yeah. He was looking pretty good, looking pretty spry. So, I mean, other than Jordan Nwora, who went 0 for 6 with no points in 18 minutes.
Couple breaks.
Yeah, it felt like the bigger the lead got, the worse the shot quality got. Jordan and Brook Lopez in particular. Like Brook's his shot selection has just been like horrendous at times. But whatever, he's feeling himself. Brook 13 points on 11 shots, so still doing fine there. But he was he was only a +1 in 28 minutes. So the Bucks did a lot of their better work when Brook was on the bench. But again, probably the most important number you pointed out, the minutes number. Brook getting all the way up to 28 minutes. Obviously, Bucks are feeling pretty good about being able to stretch him out in terms of the minute load. So that's a nice thing to see. And it was nice to see him get up for a couple of dunks, nice alley-oop dunk. I think we talked about when he was coming back. To me, that was a little bit of a litmus test, right? Is he doesn't need to do that stuff to be effective. You're mainly worried about his defense. A lot of that's just positioning. But to see him kind of making some plays, I don't know if I'd call them explosive plays, but to see him kind of, going up, dunking, doing stuff around the basket, without fear, that's obviously, I think, an encouraging sign that he's confident and not thinking about his back at this point, which certainly generally we've seen a lot of encouraging signs physically from him. So all around, good win. Would have been great if it would have been by 25, but that's fine. Whatever, no big deal. Bank it. Move on to this tough road trip. You would have hated to lose this game, even obviously under difficult circumstances. You would have hated to take a loss here, heading into these 3 straight road games against Memphis, Brooklyn, and Philly, because this should have been one, obviously, that you chalk up as a win. So, yeah, taking care of business, as you said, and on to bigger and better things.
I am, and this was something that I didn't really notice, and you did mention it, and it's definitely not a knock on him at all. But it is weird that you have 50 points of production out of the lineup, and Wes Matthews can play 28 minutes and just take 1 shot. And he was Tony Snell out there. He's doing his best Tony Snell impersonation, and I'm actually disappointed that he A, took that shot, and then B, had a rebound, C, had an assist, and D, had a steal. If you're going to go to that length, can you please give us zeros across the board?
Yeah, I know. No fouls either. So yeah, and he had that nice play in transition where it was like a 2-on-1. And he ended up stripping the ball off. I don't know if it was KCP or who it was. So yeah, hey, Wes just does what is needed, right? Tonight they didn't need scoring from him; they got it from other guys. So that was a positive. But chalk up another win, and they get to 46 wins. 46 and 26 last year, 46 and 27 now. So very close to the 1-loss pace that they were at last year. But we got 9 more games to go.
Any interest in replica championship rings, Frank? They handed them out tonight at the arena.
That's a great get promo. I mean, that's got to be the best promo of the season, right?
I think so. And they look fantastic on the TV camera, but you kind of need to get a feel for them and see, whether they feel gimmicky. But by all reports, they did look pretty cool. Speaking of looking pretty cool, that kid that they kept putting on the broadcast tonight, that guy knows at the age of, I don't know, maybe 3. He's probably 3 years old. He knows how to act in front of the camera. So that was the coolest Bucks fan I've perhaps ever seen. I got a question for you, though. I was thinking about this while I was watching the game. But first, I'll talk about Bet Online. It is college basketball tournament, and shout out to Bobby Portis and the Arkansas Razorbacks, who I know nothing about college basketball, but they beat Gonzaga, which I think is a pretty big deal. Bobby Portis was very happy. He's leaning in. Yeah, I mentioned this in our DM, Frank, but Bobby Portis has really lent in to that. I guess it's a SpongeBob meme with the goatee. Have you ever had a goatee, Frank? Because you could do it right now. Right now.
Yeah, I could. No, I've never gotten a goatee. I think, I don't know, something about white dudes with goatees. I just don't. Yeah, I just don't think it works that well. I mean, Bobby Portis looks good.
It does.
Bobby, keep doing what you're doing. Me, goatee would not. By the way, when you said goatee, I've never heard an Australian say goatee before.
Lazy, pretty lazy.
And we say goatee for some reason. You say goatee. That definitely threw me off a little bit. So, but I'm a professional. I rolled with it. For some reason I'm talking about it now. But yeah, no, goatee is not for me. I've had a beard since 2012. I spent a few months at a site out in the desert helping build a prototype wind turbine. I figured nobody was seeing me every day. So I just grew facial hair. And then I met my wife like 6 months later, and I shaved a couple times, and she just thought I looked like a child basically with the clean shaven look. So basically I need to hide my real face from my wife or she won't be happy. It's my unfortunate day-to-day reality, but yeah, cause I got the gray in here, so it makes me look a little bit older, but no goatee ever. I think and I don't know how we've gotten this far astray, but I believe you were talking about Bobby's Arkansas Razorbacks and his meme, the meme that has been made about him.
I was, and to get back to our friends at Bet Online, if you want to find the odds that Frank will have a goatee in the next stage of his life, you can get it at betonline.net. And along with the other odds contests and player props from across the NBA, baseball's obviously coming back here. NHL is going on right now. NFL a little bit away, but you can find all the futures there. You can find all the odds on the Green Bay Packers. And last I heard with the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers is going to be like the schoolyard. He's going to throw a long pass, and then he's going to run and catch his own throw because he has no one to throw to at the moment with the Green Bay Packers. But you can find all the odds, props, and markets, as I said, at betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Make sure you check out the Locked On Now podcast. You'll be able to keep up with everything that happened around the NBA overnight. And, there's some interesting stuff going on, particularly in relation to the standings. Ja Morant, who the Bucks actually play next, he's going to miss 2 weeks with this knee strain that he has, so you can get the reaction from our friends over at Locked On Grizzlies. But speaking of injuries and coming back from injuries, Pat Connaughton, you tweeted it tonight. I mean, this was one of the things that we said, conditioning-wise, that he's going to come back into the lineup and he's going to be totally fine because he'll be able to get the work in the legs. So aerobically, he's probably going to be in a good spot. And I know I'm going to shock I don't know what happens if you break a bone or you have some issue with your shooting hand. But this guy has come back exactly the same as what he was beforehand. It's pretty incredible, but it's lovely to watch. But he looks confident or more confident than he did when he left, which is obviously a big boost to this bench unit.
Yeah, I mean, he's hit 11 of 24 threes, and he's averaging 15 points a game in the 3 games since he came back. And he's put up 14, 15, and 16 points, night 16. So, man, again, I feel like you again want to knock on wood that he stays healthy from here on out. But he's got a metal plate and some screws in that hand now.
Yes.
I was joking about it that maybe we all need to get metal plates and screws in our hands to turn us into flame throwing jump shooters like Pat has been here the past 3 games. So yeah, really encouraging to see him shooting the way that he has, because we know how important he was last year in the playoffs. And I think, again, I was hesitant when the Bucks were losing some games when he first went out. I was hesitant to say like, oh, Bucks really missing Pat, Pat Connaughton. Like when they lost to like the Sixers and the Nets, it was like people were like, wow, they're really missing Pat Connaughton. It's like, yeah, but you know what? The Nets with Kyrie Irving and no James Harden and Kevin Durant, I still think you got to beat them at home, even if you don't have Pat Connaughton. But anyway, very nice to see Pat back. Again, talking about the bench scoring and the lack of that for a while. It's obviously Pat being back and shooting the way he has been a huge plus. And I want to shout out. We talked about it on the last pod we did about Pat, and that he kind of did it again tonight. That catch it high and kind of basically don't bring it down. Just don't even go into your dip. Just catch high and keep it high and shoot the 3 immediately. Eric pointed out that Zora Stevenson did like a film room thing on Bucks.com or the Bucks YouTube channel or whatever, with Pat on a few different things, right? Like looking at different stuff. And they actually talked about that. And it was funny because in our DM, I was asking like, who else does that? Like, will sometimes take threes, not even bringing it down. And the first person I thought of actually was your boy, Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles started doing that. And in the video, as that Eric pointed to me, Pat noted that Kyle Korver sort of, I don't know if you'd say taught him that, but kind of, passed that on to him as kind of like a next level shooting type thing for him to work on, which makes sense that Korver would have that as part of his bag. And now I'm actually trying to think like Korver and Joe Ingles played together. Like, did Korver also turn Joe Ingles onto that? So next time you interview Joe Ingles, Kane, which you'll do it at some point because, you're the czar of Australian NBA media at this point. Ask Joe Ingles if he got that skill set from, or if Kyle Korver kind of turned him onto that, because not a ton of guys do that. So anyway, shout out to Eric and Zora and Kyle Korver, Joe Ingles, and most of all Pat Connaughton for adding yet another tool to his bag of tricks. So yeah, that was a cool thing.
Well, it is, and this is something that certainly, I mean, I've watched NBA for a long time, but until I was there and like seeing it really up close, the 3-point line is a fucking long way away. And when I shoot a basketball, and again, like, I mean, I'm not good at basketball, but I have to put in a lot of effort to shoot an NBA three. And I just remember when we would go to practice and we would see these guys, Brook Lopez was the funniest out of all of them because he doesn't even jump and he shoots it from so deep and he just flicks this little pebble at the rim and just completely effortlessly. These guys are so strong. And I think the point you were actually going to get to, which you never did, is that Kyle Korver is with Brooklyn right now. So Ben Simmons is going to be shooting those threes when he returns. So,
definitely not. But he'll never return. He's going to be up. I mean, actually, I don't know. I mean, doesn't it sound like Ben Simmons is like?
I didn't think he's playing this year.
Yeah. I don't think so. Which surprised me. I was among those saying, "Oh, he's just ducking the Sixer game," blah blah blah. But strangely, it looks like that back injury. I mean, he's herniated. It seems like a similar problem that Brook went through. So we'll see if he needs surgery or not. But yeah, Steve Nash's comments. He's not doing anything, right? Isn't that like has been his comments like recently? Like, oh, he's not doing anything. Like, he's like completely shut down. They're hoping that rest and I think the red flags really went off when there was the discussion about him getting the epidural.
It's crazy to me. I'd never heard of that outside of a. Yeah. I mean, I know people made the jokes, but I'd literally never heard of it outside of a childbirth.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, I don't think the Nets. I think the Nets are still contenders even without Ben Simmons. But I think they become obviously everything is dependent on Kyrie and Durant now. And again, they have some, obviously Patty Mills and Seth Curry obviously bring shooting, but you kind of chip away, no Joe Harris, no Simmons. It obviously makes them, just a weirder team because they've got the two superstars, they've got kind of the two shooting specialists, and then they've got a lot of guys who are just like kind of more like defensive hustle player type guys, like Bruce Brown and James Johnson and, Andre Drummond, I don't know if you consider him like a defensive specialist, but he's obviously kind of a big eye rebounder type. So yeah, they're an interesting. I'm really curious to see that game that is coming up. Obviously Kyrie will be eligible to play in that now. It's gonna be interesting to see just how these teams match up since we haven't seen them play against KD and Kyrie, I guess. A year, yeah, because Kyrie was away from the team on opening night. So first chance to see just the KD and Kyrie team since last playoffs.
So before I want to bring something up that came up on Twitter during this game, and I do think it's an interesting conversation to have. We've been discussing it a little bit, so I'll get to that after I talk about our friends at NBA Top Shot, which is the officially licensed NFT of the NBA. Connect with a community of hundreds of thousands of NBA fans as natural progression of fantasy sports, a way to upgrade your experience as an NBA fan. This is the future of what being an NBA fan looks like. It's part trading cards. It's also akin to the stock market for NBA. So every day, millions of dollars worth of NFTs are traded back and forth between tens of thousands of NBA fans around the world. And basically, you have a highlight. And people ask, why would I buy a highlight when I can watch it on YouTube for free? But it's not just about watching the highlight. It's about having ownership stake in what's akin to a stock market for the NBA's greatest highlights. Now, Frank, you brought this up the other day, and I don't want to turn this into the Locked On Bucks Australia version. There's been a lot of Australia talk on this podcast. But I don't know if the Daily Scoop is on Top Shot, but it absolutely should be on Top Shot. And I think there would be Bucks fans out there that would be very interested in owning the Daily Scoop as a Top Shot. Anyway, I don't know. If someone has the answer to that, if it's on Top Shot, then let us know. But you can get your starter packs if you join Top Shot for around $9. So it's not too bad there. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at lockedon.nbatopshot.com.
Wait, so let's impromptu ask this question. If you could have 5 Top Shots from Bucks history, what would be your top 5? I know the first 2 that immediately come to mind, but what would be your top 5? You go. Let's go quick rapid fire here, back and forth. I'll give you the first pick. First pick, Bucks Top Shot history.
Drew Holiday to Giannis, Elliott, NBA Finals.
Yeah, and I feel like when I think of Top Shots, I always think of like them being of a player. That one would be the unique 2-player, right? Because it has to start with Drew Steele and then the LU. I will say the my second pick would be the Giannis block on Ayton. I feel like that's, just like an iconic play now as well. So I'll say the iconic block on Ayton would be my second one. Do you have a third one that comes to mind, a single play from Bucks history that you would say would be your number 3?
It's hard to say because I don't know if there's you
can say the Daily Scoop. You can say the Daily Scoop. I think that's a totally valid one. I mean, that is one, like we were joking about, but like that's one of those real, like, if someone tells you they're a Bucks fan and you want a litmus test, you say, what was the high point of the I don't remember what year, 2018? Was it 2018, I guess, right? That was
17, 18, yeah.
What was the highlight of the 2018 Bucks playoff run? It might be that moment. I wasn't in the building, but that seemed like just one of the most insane crowd reaction plays that we've seen when Delly steals that inbound at the end of the first quarter of, what was it, game 4, I think, or was it game 3 or game 4?
I'm going to mix it up, though. I'm going to go because I just had some more time to think about it. And I was so locked in on the playoff run and championship that you do have to expand your mind a little bit. I want Giannis jumping over Hardaway at MSG.
That was what I was thinking about too. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about this. I am lower on that dunk than most people. Like if I were going to do my top 10 Giannis dunks, that would be lower down the list than I think the average Bucks fan would put it. Like probably a lot of Bucks fans would say that's like his best dunk. It just looked too easy to me. It's like Tim Hardaway was like photoshopped in, like, I don't know, somehow that like devalue, even though in some ways that makes it more amazing. I think if we were thinking about like that, the value of the NFT or whatever, I would say that's probably one that would be up there. I don't, other ones that kind of come to mind immediately, like, I'm again, recency biased, like, like thinking about plays like Kareem's skyhook to win. What was that? The 74 finals, game 6, whatever, against Boston. Again, they lost the final, so like it didn't really matter as much, but that's like an iconic shot. Whatever. I'm more biased towards stuff from my era. Some of the other ones that come to mind though, Giannis's game winner at MSG. That's like an all-time Giannis highlight. Glenn Robinson's like half-court shot against, I think that came against Charlotte. Was it game 7 at home against Charlotte in 2001, maybe? Like that's one of the, I think, like the signature, like crazy loud type plays that we saw. during kind of my earlier fandom days. So that's another good one. And then, I mean, there's some obviously like iconic Giannis dunks, which like the ones like the Space Jam dunk. He's had like 2 Space Jam dunks to me. The one against Indiana where he went nearly from the foul line, and then the one against the Knicks where like Carmelo was like right near him on a breakaway and he still took off from like almost the free throw line and dunked. And it was just like, that would look like dangerous, to be honest, like that play. Those are some other ones that come to mind. And then I don't know, like, I mean, like I was at you remember the Bogut overtime game winner against the Spurs, his rookie year. I was at that game. So that one like will always be very memorable to me.
Kukoc
to Bogut. That one will always kind of jump out to me. So I don't know. Tweet at us. Tell us. I'm sure we've missed some really obvious ones that would also be up there. I mean, Khris Middleton's jumper to beat the Heat. That's obviously a big
random
highlight.
Regular season, but sick.
No, I was okay.
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking of regular season.
The 2015 Khris Middleton shot, which I saw on the Bucks account this week.
Yeah.
That was an incredible game. I think they'd lost like 5 or 6 in a row. So they like really needed that win. That was an incredible play. Like just everything about it, like Zaza with the blind save, all that. Yeah. That was an incredible one. But I was thinking of Khris versus the Heat.
Right. Gotcha.
That was, I mean, obviously the first win of the 16 last year. It wasn't a buzzer. It would have been if it was a buzzer beater, I would say like, yeah, it's up there. The fact that it wasn't actually a buzzer beater maybe devalues it a little bit, but yeah, there's a bunch of great ones out there. When you have Giannis for the better part of a decade, like you're gonna have a lot of like very special moments. So I'm curious how many of these are. I don't even know how many of these are actually even on Top Shot right now, but those should be worth something.
Well, you can tell I'm an absolute nerd because I was thinking of a regular season game winner over a literal playoff game winner that we just saw a few months ago. But anyway, NBA Top Shot's going to be pumped because we just gave him a 10-minute ad read. But I just quickly do need to get to our.
That's organic. What I mean, that's the sort of organic content, man. That like
that's right.
That's why they pay the big bucks to some people, maybe not us, but we're doing our best, man.
And by the way, you're right. It's actually just fun conversation. So I'll put a prompt up on YouTube and you answer it however you want. Can be all Giannis, can be old school stuff, whatever it is, your top 5 shots or whatever, blocks, highlights.
John Henson blocking Matt Barnes and then going full WWE, and that's right. That is a deep cut. That's a deep cut highlight. I saw that recently as well. I was at that game too. It was like Tyler Ennis. It was like that was one of the weirdest games. It was like the Bucks C team closing out the Memphis Grizzlies. And I'm blanking on which year that was, but
go to more games. That's the bottom line of this story. And the bottom line of everyone's appetite when they get hungry, it should be Built Bar. And I'm sorry, it took a while to get to this, but Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar that's ever been made. And,
Top 10 moments eating a Built Bar, King. Go.
Do you know, this is really weird, but I was thinking today, and this is pretty random, and you'll get some insight into what goes through my head, but there was this play in this game tonight, and this is Built Bar related, but there was this play tonight where Porzingis swung through with the elbows and caught Drew Holiday. And the amount of times these NBA players just catch an elbow from a man, like I don't understand how they are knocked out, but I was picturing myself getting knocked out and what I would be thinking of. And I would be sent to a land where there's nothing but Built Bars everywhere. And I'm just sitting there eating Built Bars. And I get woken up and I'm actually still on an NBA hardwood. But anyway, it's the best tasting protein bar that's ever been made. It's good for you. It's really healthy, as we know, whether it's mint brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate cookies and cream. They've got everything you need right there. They even have the puffs. The puffs are a special bar that are also covered in 100% real chocolate. And they've got marshmallow inside. It's honestly ridiculous stuff. So make sure you go check it out. It is delicious. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right. So one thing I did want to get to before we head into the weekend here, and we know, as I said, the Bucks have got the Grizzlies, they've got the Nets, they've got the Sixers coming up. I'm not sure if that's the correct order, but they've got those 3 games all on the road. So it's going to be some fun basketball coming up here. And the YouTube comments have been very quick to remind us, Frank. We've been saying for a while that the Bucks aren't going to get the 1 seed. Miami have an easy schedule. They're going to figure it out. Next thing, Jimmy Butler wants to fight Eric Spoelstra on the bench, which, by the way, that video of the fan video with Spoelstra going, "You want to fight me?" And he just looks completely shocked is so funny. I've watched it at least 700 times at this point. His face, and looking at PJ Tucker, he just looked like a guy that just wanted nothing to do with what was going on. He's probably thinking, please give me Khris back. Please give me Giannis back. These friendly guys that like each other. I want to be back in beautiful Milwaukee. The weather is so nice down there. But when you look at the standings, there's been a couple of horrific losses for Miami that the Stars weren't playing for Golden State. They weren't playing for Philadelphia. And Miami still managed to lose those games. And there is only one game. The Bucks are 1 game out of the first seed here with, what do they got left? 9 games to go. So things are going to heat up. What did you think of that situation, though? I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. I actually watched the end of the Heat Warriors game, and it was funny to watch because, yeah, I mean the Warriors they lost the night before to Orlando, and then they go to Miami. They rest Draymond, they rest Clay, and obviously Steph is hurt, and Jordan Poole just had a heater, and Andrew Wiggins had an awesome second half. And Kuminga was good, but then he fouled out on kind of a questionable 3-point play by Jimmy. And it was just kind of fun to watch the Warriors just kind of turn it on down the stretch and win that game while all chaos was breaking loose on the bench. And that was probably why I was like, oh man, because the Heat were still in the game. I was like, oh man, I really hope I really hope the Heat lose, because if they lose or if they win after that weird whole Jimmy thing, then like it'll kind of get like brushed under a little bit. But
right, yeah.
If they if they lose, then it'll become more of a talking point. So yeah, Jimmy's just such a weird guy.
52 mil in 2026.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. And I mean, he just is constantly like missing games with just random crap, and they play well without him, which is a credit to Spo and how hard those guys play. But weird. I mean, I'm looking at the playoff probabilities on Basketball Reference, and they still have the Heat at projected to win 1.7 more games than the second place team, which actually is now Boston. Boston, again, just been an absolute machine. I mean, I think they're absolutely a contender to come out of the East. They've just been they've just been by far the best team in the East for months now. And again, I hate the Celtics. I want them to lose in the first round. I don't like the Celtics. I lived in Boston for 15 years. I freaking hate the Celtics, but they've been playing great. Their defense has been awesome. And, Tatum's, after a pretty, miserable shooting start of the season, he's been very, very good for a while now. So the Celtics are actually favored to be numbers 2. Bucks now, basically the projections have the Celtics at 51.0, Bucks at 50.7, Sixers at 50.6 wins. So very close, closely packed for the top 4. And then you have to go, the Cavs, again, this is probably going to change because the Cavs lost tonight to the Raptors, but Cavs were at 46.9. So basically 4 wins back of kind of the top 4 projected wins. So, I would say it seems very much like we know the top 4. We know who's going to have home court in the first round. Now the question is obviously just what that jostling looks like. The Celtics actually have the hardest remaining schedule. It's Boston and Chicago. Basically, Boston, Chicago, Indiana have pretty much all kind of similar remaining strength of schedule. And then it's the Bucks have the 4th hardest strength of schedule, which probably will bump up tomorrow morning, given that they just played the Wizards, so they don't have that game on their schedule anymore. Right. So yeah, I mean, really at this point, obviously the Grizzlies game will matter. They're all worth 1 game, but as far as the games that are really going to matter as far as the East standings, pretty obvious. Bucks get the Celtics at home, and the Bucks obviously have to go to Philly next week. So the Philly game really matters because in the sense of it's the head-to-head tiebreaker. Philly, if they win, they actually no, it's tied 1-1, right? Yeah. So I guess whoever wins that game will have the head-to-head tiebreaker in case the two teams are tied at the end of the regular season. And with the Celtics, obviously the Celtics have been super hot. And if they come to Milwaukee and win, then they would have the tiebreaker over the Bucks. And if the Bucks win, then it would be 2-2. So yeah, I mean, if you're saying like, what are the two games you would, if you're again trying to maximize wins, which, with Brooklyn looming as a potential 8 seed, maybe that's not your first priority. But with that kind of coming up and looking ahead to the schedule, I'd say those are the two obvious wins that, as a fan, I would say, like those are two teams that you may have to go through to win the title. So certainly you would love to win those two games. I think Giannis going into Philly and dropping another monster game as he did in his first MVP season, that 45-point game that kind of sewed up the MVP for him that year. Again, that might be his last best chance to really kind of make a statement. Certainly have other chances, right? I mean, if he drops a monster game on KD and the Nets and they win in Brooklyn, that would also help. But he obviously, I'd say, again, probably unfairly, has to make some really big statement games in these last few weeks in order to kind of make a last-ditch run at MVP. So we'll see. But obviously, him not playing tonight with the knee soreness, we saw he had the wrap on his hand yesterday. Comments from Bud pregame. We're kind of bearing the lead, I guess, a little bit, but comments from Bud, sounded like they were going to make a call if he was even going to travel to Memphis, which it's like, if he doesn't travel to Memphis, is he not traveling on the rest of the road trip?
Man, it's Giannis. They get him. The owners personally come and pick him up.
Yeah. I read it as like, maybe he, they'll see how he is. Maybe he doesn't play Saturday. I would be pretty shocked if he doesn't play in those, the Brooklyn and Sixers games next week. But it sounded like the hand thing, people saw he had a kind of like a little wrap on his hand at the Herd game yesterday when he and Thanasis went up to see his younger brother Alex play against the Herd. It sounds like Bud was just kind of like, yeah, he just takes hits and gets knocks, but it didn't seem like he was that it was much of an issue. He did seem more optimistic that, Khris is going to travel for sure, and sounds like Khris will probably play on Saturday. So at least you get Khris Middleton back. But obviously, hey, I get it. You're trying to make sure your best guys are healthy for the playoffs. But as a fan, of course, like, look, hey man, I love stealing. It's fun. There's something kind of fun about stealing a game against anyone, the Wizards or otherwise, without your best players. But do I want to spend my Saturday night watching, half strength Bucks team try to beat the Grizzlies with or without Ja Morant? I'll watch, but I'd much rather watch the Bucks with Giannis and Khris both back. So fingers crossed, Giannis is feeling good and ready to go. But we'll see. Obviously, a potential letdown Saturday night.
Frank, we pushed this podcast back an hour because you watched a 0-0 soccer game. So please do not complain about watching an entertaining game of NBA basketball on a Saturday night.
USA.
One last thing on the standings. It is just, if I could be bothered going back and looking, then I would do it. I'm sure our listeners, some of them probably know, or they probably know how to find it out quicker than I do. But 1.5 games between the first 4 seeds this deep into the season, I don't know how often that's happened, but that sounds absolutely bonkers to me. When you look at the West, there's 14.5 games between the top 4 seeds between Utah and Phoenix there. So it's just absolutely crazy that there could be 1.5 games between the top 4 seeds at this point in time. And if Chicago didn't choke away the last 3 weeks, then they would be in the mix as well. But the Bulls lost to the Pelicans tonight. Tough go for them. Make sure you check out the Locked On NBA podcast. They'll have you covered. That's a national show on the network. After you're done with us, go and check out that podcast there. Should we wrap it, Frank? You got anything you desperately need to get off your chest before you hit the weekend?
No, I think we're good to go, Kane. Good night to everybody. Happy Friday. Fingers crossed for a big Bucks road trip. And fingers crossed that we see full strength Bucks on Saturday in Memphis.
Catches.
By the way, I should just take. Let me just apologize. Ahead of the game last Saturday, I made a comment on Twitter. I said, because Pat Connaughton and Brook were both, Pat was supposed to come back. Brook was back. And I said, this will be the first time all season when the Bucks will have essentially their playoff rotation available. Because remember, Bobby Portis was not playing at the start of the season when they beat the Nets. They had their starting five, but Brook was there, but they did not have Bobby actually. So I was like, oh, look, first time all season, they have everybody back. And then we find out Giannis is knee soreness. And Giannis comes back against the Bulls. But then Khris doesn't play. And then neither Giannis nor Khris plays tonight. And now Giannis may play on Saturday. So I'm just going to shut up about predicting the Bucks being back at full strength. I clearly have just jinxed it. So anyway, that's it.
I accept your apology, Frank. But I did see, I can't remember who tweeted it out, but there was some stat saying Miami, the number one seed, despite only having their starting five for 40% of games this season. I said 40%? What are you talking about? Bucks have had their starting five for maybe 3%. Bit of respect for Brook Lopez, please. Brook Lopez erasure. We will not stand for it here on Locked On Bucks. And on that note, on that angry note, we'll see you next week.